What's up, Lore Masters? Today I'll be discussing the shuttles of the Federation and Starfleet. Interestingly, there's not really enough information to do a video on a single shuttle, but so many individual ones that I may have to break this entire video up into a series. We'll just have to see. With that out of the way, let's just get into it. The first shuttle we'll be looking into is one that's pretty iconic, at least in my opinion. The Type 6 shuttle is a short-range Starfleet shuttlecraft. It was used widely in the mid to late 24th century. It would be the workhorse of most Starfleet ships, shipyards, and planetary bodies when Starfleet was involved. This shuttle would even be seen in the schematic breakdowns of the Prometheus, Nova, and Sovereign class vessels, proving the shuttle's versatility and reliability even far into the future. When we first see the Type 6 shuttle, it appears to only be utilized for transportation and cargo runs, lacking any real offensive weaponry. The shuttle was initially equipped with two 1,250 millicochrane warp nacelles along with microfusion thrusters. From what I could find, the ship would be powered by a singular fusion reactor, and yet has warp capability. There have been a couple of theories on why this may be so. The first is that warp can be obtained utilizing any power source. However, higher warp speeds require so much power that the use of a warp core is necessary. I even had an interesting conversation with Trekyards on Twitter who believes that the warp capability is possible through the use of a fusion reactor. Unfortunately, from what I can tell, that's not how warp drive works. In order to obtain warp factor, it's not a matter of going fast enough, it's a matter of creating warp fields that form a subspace bubble that envelops a starship and allows it to distort the local space-time continuum. This, from most resources that I found, is primarily achieved through a matter-antimatter reaction that is ran through an assembly of dilithium crystals. There may be other methods, but from what I can tell, a fusion reactor cannot create the necessary subspace fields to achieve warp speed. It has also been theorized that the warp bubble is not created by the matter-antimatter reaction with the dilithium, but the nacelles themselves. This would mean that Trekyards is correct and I am incorrect because a fusion reactor might be able to generate enough power in order to make a subspace field, in theory at least. Honestly, I remain skeptical, but maybe I need to get Trekyards on a live stream so we can discuss it. I don't know, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Ultimately, if a fusion reactor is not able to create a subspace bubble, this would mean that a mini warp core would have to be located somewhere on the shuttle itself, and that's never seen. This also would require a type of miniaturization technology that's never observed in any other circumstance during the next generation era. Oh, fun fact, I just spent 30 minutes researching warp drives, fusion reactors, and warp factors just to give you the last paragraph. I also discovered that dilithium does not naturally occur on Earth in the Star Trek universe. This means that Cochrane would have to use other resources that occur naturally on Earth to obtain warp speed that we never see in the movies. And we have no real evidence that he does this. You know, I have a bachelor's in business administration. I mean, my parents are dead, but if only they could see me now, am I right, boys? Getting back to the Type 6 shuttle, the shuttle was equipped with RCS thrust quad and an atmospheric ram scoop. Or wait, was that an air scoop? Which would allow it to be utilized in atmospheric conditions. It would also have a forward navigation deflector. It would additionally have a sensor array. Oh wait, I'm sorry, I think that reads hover filled anti-grav instead of sensor array. Additionally, it would have a forward emitter array and a graviton polarity source generator. No, wait, I'm sorry. It's not a graviton polarity source generator, it's a navigation deflector. Man, it just gets so confusing. Ultimately, the shuttle would be outfitted with Type 4 phasers. The Type 6 shuttle would include two chairs in the cockpit for the pilot and co-pilot separated by a console in the middle. There would be benches directly behind the cockpit for additional passengers. You could enter and exit the shuttle through a back entrance that was large enough for passengers or cargo. The Type 7 shuttlecraft looks to be a streamlined version of the Type 6 and is seen working in tandem with the Type 6. It would also be available on multiple ships during the mid to late 24th century. Curiously, we don't see Type 7 shuttles in more advanced ships such as the Sovereign or Prometheus class. These shuttles, while still having warp nacelles, had two different versions in which one could obtain warp and the other not. The shuttle had minimal shielding but did come standard with emergency transporters. The interior of the shuttle was similar to that of the Type 6 but did also sport passenger seating and sensor controls behind the cockpit. Like the Type 6, the shuttle could be entered and exited through a back hatch. The Type 8 shuttle was basically the Type 6 except using assets from Voyager to make it look more like an Intrepid ship because God forbid execs pay to have a completely new shuttle on screen. The Type 8 shuttle would look amazingly like the Type 6 with more advanced technology. This would make it look more like that of an Intrepid than of a standard shuttle. The Type 8 would have the exact same cockpit as that of the Type 6, but have the warp nacelles appear to be more advanced, again mimicking that of the Intrepid. Additionally, the windows were sized differently from its predecessors, and the shuttle is composed of duranium, magnesite, and carbon. These shuttles would not initially be armed, but would be able to be modified to have Type 8 phasers installed. It also stands to reason that many of the shuttle's systems would have been upgraded to better combat the Dominion and Borg threat. The Type 9 shuttle, also known as a Class 2 shuttle because why the fuck not, was largely utilized for training excursions by Starfleet Academy during the 2360s. This shuttle originally could attain Warp 4, but is observed being modified to exceed speeds of Warp 9, fuck you threshold. The shuttle was equipped with phasers and could be modified to also utilize photon torpedoes. Cause adding photon torpedoes while in the Delta Quadrant is probably really easy to do. You just change the settings on the Pez dispenser after all. The shuttle was also created with a titanium alloy. The next shuttle is known as the Type 11. However, we never see any on-screen evidence that titles the shuttle as such. The designation is taken from secondary, beta resources as well as being called that by the designer. The Type 11 shuttle appears to be a precursor to the Runabout, perhaps the link between the Type 7 and the Runabout itself. The Type 11 shuttle has two engine nacelles and is elongated, giving a similar look to that of the previously mentioned Runabout. It is equipped with dorsal docking clamps and apparently an airlock. The shuttle would also have the ability to fire tachyon bursts, which apparently is some sort of big deal. The cockpit has two forward-facing seats that are side by side with consoles located in front and a transporter directly behind them. I also never really found a way to enter or exit this shuttle beyond that airlock. The Type 15 shuttle pod looks like a toy with pencils for nacelles. Type 15 shuttle pods were generally utilized around the mid to late 24th century on most standard exploration vessels. It is equipped with two long-range 740 millicochrane impulse drive engines, which would actually also be called impulse nacelles. The ship had microfusion thrusters, which are the standard RCS thrusters in the real world. The ship is powered by a primary deuterium supply, which is fueled by 3 cerium kralide cells. The shuttle was not warp capable, but could apparently sustain warp speeds if exiting a ship at warp, cause why the hell not? Like most shuttles, the cockpit would crew up to 2 people, though some designs only had space for 1 pilot. The ship had a small compartment for cargo and was not generally configured to handle passengers. The last shuttle we'll be looking at today is the Type 18 Shuttle Pod, shown in service around the early 2370s. The ship would at least have the capability of warp flight and also have a cramped cockpit allowing for 2 individuals to pilot it. The cockpit would have consoles surrounding these chairs, and unfortunately we don't have much more information on this specific shuttle. For now, I'm going to leave it here. We'll be moving on to the other shuttles that either have names or aren't quote-unquote types. Let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about the shuttles? This information feels kind of dry, but you never can tell what the audience will enjoy. Let me know in the comments below. As always, guys, remember that ultimately our lives are just stories in the end. Make yours a good one.